Welcome to Identity and Politics, North America's newest podcast. Introducing fellow podcastman Charles Bell, Trad Overlord, and I'm Dean Vance. Issue 1, Irish Referendum. On May 25th, 2018, the Irish people will vote either to save or overturn their 8th Amendment. Irish leader Leo Varadkar, an open homosexual whose father is from India, has called for a yes vote in the referendum. A new poll on the 8th Amendment, published in the Irish Times, shows 47% of people who would vote to repeal, while 28% would vote to retain. By contrast, at this point in the same-sex marriage referendum, the yes side was leading at about 75%, and eventually went on to win with 62% of the vote. Charles, what is up with Ireland?
Well, I want to say this. What's up with Ireland? Number one, when you talk about Europe, they've had a flood of immigrants. So, really, you want to talk about infiltration of culture, potentially? And, another thing is, whenever controversial topics come out, they have lasting effects. I mean, we've seen the lasting effects of abortion. We've killed over 10 million babies since abortion laws came out in the 60s. But, Ireland, you'd think that they're more of a traditional type country and that they'd have more traditional views and values. So it's really kind of disappointing to see Ireland kind of go down this path. And I hope they don't go down this path, allowing this to happen.
And this shows, if you look at Europe, if you look at the countries that are on the downfall, their leaders don't have any children. From Angela Merkel of Germany, Macron doesn't have any children. Merkel doesn't either. Varadkar, who's an open homosexual, he doesn't have children either. These people don't understand, they don't connect to the family. And this also goes, women are becoming a problem. Women are ultimately becoming a problem. And I remember seeing this video in Ireland of this woman. It was at a pro-choice rally, and she was saying out into the crowd, "Hoes need abortions," and the crowd was repeating after her. The fact that a woman would even say that is baffling.
And whenever I've talked to people who doctors have told them your baby has no chance, go ahead and abort it, and they don't, and they said, "I'm glad I didn't have an abortion because I had my baby." And I think when women actually have their own kids, they understand the value. But a lot of these women, whenever you talk about them chanting those words, it's like, how can you just say we're going to kill somebody? People can say what they want, say, yeah, it's my body. But, you got to understand, you're ending someone's life. But that's a whole other debate for a whole other time. We can get into that. But really, it comes down to the feminism movement that is really hurting them. And I want to say a thing on Angela Merkel, too. She's a woman. How many women leaders do you know have kids?
Yeah,
I don't think any of them do.
That's a good point.
You talk about the gay guy. Do gays? They can't. They can procreate, but they can't procreate with another guy unless they adopt. So really, technically, they really can't procreate. So between those and Macron, I'm actually surprised he doesn't have kids, but they don't have that family touch.
Right.
And that's what really hurts, is going to hurt society for them.
And the sad part is, Ireland is still the homeland for the Irish people. And the only way their homeland is going to be healthy and progress and succeed in the future is with more Irish people. There is also a movement in Ireland called something along the lines of Project 2040, where they plan on bringing in 1 million or 2 million migrants to replace Irish people dying. They're willingly giving away their culture, giving away they have a homeland. They should value that.
And really, whenever anybody thinks about Ireland, they think of the red-headed, red-bearded guy,
right.
in his kilt. And you got to think too, the United Kingdom the United Kingdom has just recently got a lot worse, and in terms of immigration and culture. But if you go back into World War II, where they brought in millions of immigrants to help rebuild their country, it kind of started there, and then kind of trickled down into what we know. And really, you want to talk about when the United Kingdom was in its true state. It was prior to World War II. Really, because they had to rebuild and brought in a bunch of
It was British
immigrants.
Empire.
It was.
British
it was.
Empire was the height of Britain.
Yeah, and now we see the immigration. They've gone wrong about it. I mean, I'm not against immigration, but I'm against great vetting of immigration. You are very selective in who you let in. I know you may disagree with that.
Yeah.
But really, we see Europe is being destroyed by not having selective immigration.
Right. And Ireland, the National Party, a political party I follow in Ireland, the leader Justin Barrett, was recently on a TV program where the interviewer asked him, "What is the penalty for doctors who give the abortion?" He replied, "Death penalty." So I mean, they've still got this nationalist sense, which they should always have. Every country should, but it just shows. I don't want to go back to the women every time, but they are becoming a huge problem. They screw up, especially in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
America to an extent, but especially in Europe.
Well, it's getting that way.
Yeah, we're getting there.
I think, if you go back to biological means, and you go back to really United States sense, if you talk about the 1950s, I know people want to say, yeah, conservatives if you look at their families, are a 1950s reenactment scene. You know what? You can call it that. But we know what works. You talk about women back in that day, stereotypically. Your ideal woman. They really submitted themselves to their husbands. And you realize that, they're oppressed, that's why they had lower divorce rates. No. You talk to any woman back in that day, there aren't many of them left that were housewives. They're probably in their upper 80s, early 90s now. And they said they were very happy and pleased. Now we have these women who are crying wolf out here in Europe, which is translating over to the United States, which social media hasn't helped. I mean, would you agree social media hasn't helped with this?
Absolutely.
Being emboldened by this, and like you said, I don't want to keep going back to women, but biologically, we're different.
Oh, absolutely.
The man's the head,
absolutely.
The woman's below.
Just like the races are different, man and women are different.
Yeah, I don't want to say that they're different, but in a sense, they are different. But we're all human, and I think they all have their own set culture. How do we break that culture is a question, and especially when it comes to women. I mean, really, whenever you see women chanting, the real big feminists, it's white women. Right. So really,
that's a really good point.
So really, who's the problem? Who is destroyed?
Right.
Who's destroyed?
It's white women and Jewish women every time. Every time.
Do you think that white women have more of a voice than black women who feel like they have none? That's why that they get up on a podium and yell about it?
Could be. This whole thing reminds me, the woman question reminds me of a picture I saw on Twitter a few weeks ago of a girl, I think it may have been her senior pictures, and she had a gun in her waistband of her jeans. And she said, something along the lines of, "I don't take normal senior pictures." And conservatives can be happy about that, but if that's the state of women, where a woman wants to carry a gun, that shows that men have failed to protect the woman. Mm-hmm. The woman doesn't feel protected. Yet conservatives say, "Oh, look at this pro-Second Amendment woman." Back in the day, women didn't care about the Second Amendment at all because it was the men's responsibility, and women are feeling empowerment, just like the Second World War and prior. They're feeling empowered, and she wants to wear a gun and show it off. And, Ben Shapiro and his buddies, Charlie Kirk and them, celebrate that. But that shows that men have failed, in a way.
So, this brings an idea to my mind. So, are men the root of feminism?
That's an interesting...
You know what I mean?
It's very woke.
We've enabled it. I shouldn't say you or I have.
Yeah, right.
It'd be the older generation who have enabled these women. So could men potentially be their worst enemy? Right. And really, we allow these things to happen. Okay. It's not like we've never told women, no, you cannot work.
Right.
I think it's just more of a family dynamic of materialism. So yes, we want more. So yes, the wife's going to work while sacrificing children.
It has to do with white people having less kids.
I would agree.
If a family has kids, the woman's going to be forced to act differently than if they didn't have kids. And I remember a tweet, I forget who exactly, but a woman tweeted that she would rather, I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was either that she would rather have women pursue engineering degrees rather than gender studies in college. It was either that or she supported women doing gender studies instead of engineering degrees. It's like you got to choose, which would you rather see a woman pursue, being an engineer or gender studies? Because on one hand, the engineer, a woman being an engineer, that's not probably going to end up, she's not going to be as happy as if she was a stay-at-home mother, of course. But her doing gender studies, she's reduced her role, reduced her meaning. She's ultimately not going to mean as much politically than if she's in engineering. So where people on the right would like to say, oh, well, of course we'd rather them be engineers. It's actually not as simple as that. So
I would agree, and I want to read something. I follow this page on Facebook, and it's called Make Women Traditional Again. I know some of you, maybe girls, listen, oh, probably men run this. No, actually, women run this. And it has, you are, the quote-unquote, you are not needed out there in the same way. You can be replaced in a higher job, but at home, you're not replaceable. There is a distinct role for you that no one else can fill. No one else can be the wife, or the daughter, or the mother, or guide of the home. No one can be in charge of the home but the homemaker. And it said, the most important thing in your life isn't getting a job or promotion. The most important thing is raising your children and being successful. And really, we've gotten away from raising successful kids, from women wanting to work. I'm not saying that's wrong. Some instances they have to. But that's where we get these kids who are being raised by these little schools, daycares, a better word, by daycare. Could be liberal daycare takers. And pushing this baloney in it.
And it's okay if a woman wants to work. Certainly if she doesn't have kids, I mean, I'd rather her work than not, support her husband. Because, I mean, the more money you have, I mean, that's going to lead to better things than having less money, logically. But we'd like to point out that societies are going downward because women are just screwing things up. Just like this woman in Ireland is yelling, "Hoes need abortions." I mean, that is ridiculous. I understand it's 2018, but it's Ireland. That shouldn't even be in the realm of possibilities of things women would say.
Well, here's the amazing thing to me. Here's the amazing thing. People always want to say, man, I wish I could live my grandma's day, and I've said it before. I wish I could be raised when my grandparents were raised, who are quote-unquote the greatest generation. But no one wants to try to live out that. When it comes to walking the talk, it's like they're dreaming but don't do anything to make the dream come true. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that baffles me. You would not believe how well marriages, I think, and you see the marriage rate from 1950 to now, over double. It's like 60%, 60% increase from now.
And I think there is a correlation between immigration and abortion and same-sex marriage. That always, to me, that's correlated with immigration. Because Ireland wasn't like this 20 years ago. Even 10 years ago. It wasn't like this. Excellent question. What does this tell us about the people that surround the Prime Minister?
Well, it amazes me how some of the most insane people get heard over the most reasonable people. And how they get elected. It's like, why? And those people around him, they're obviously supporting him. And I don't know why. I mean, they got elected for one. I only wonder what their platforms was. I don't follow the Irish elections like I do the United States and know everybody's platform. But they are some bad cookies. They're allowing Ireland, really all Europe, just to be doomed. And so you ask the question, what does this mean for his counterparts? What does it tell about his counterparts? They're horrible.
Right.
I'll straight tell you, they're horrible.
Mm-hmm. And it's sad because Ireland is still healthy and has such potential. And I don't think that potential and that energy is going to be wasted.
Come over here and they take on our land. They chop off our heads and they boil them in oil. Our children are leaving and we have no heads. We drink and we sing and we drink and we die.
Issue 2. Swedish Plebiscite. On September 9th of the current year, Sweden will elect a new Prime Minister, which is much needed. The Social Democratic Party is the largest party in Sweden with 113 of the 349 seats in the Riksdag. Sweden's current Prime Minister, Stefan Löfven, has been Prime Minister of Sweden since October 3rd, 2014. The Nationalist Party, Sweden Democrats, who are the third largest party in the Riksdag with 49 seats, are expected to make a push. The Sweden Democrats strongly support a policy of re-immigration and would support immigrants who prefer to return to their home country. Other nationalist and anti-migration parties on the rise are Alternative for Deutschland of Germany, Party for Freedom of the Netherlands, Lega Nord of Italy, People's Party of Slovakia, and Jobbik of Hungary. Charles, what should the rise of nationalist anti-immigration parties say to nationalists across the world?
So I want to answer a question in terms of the United States, because one, we live in the United States, and I want to correlate it to Europe. You know, whenever the United States does something, usually the world follows. I think we don't understand how much influence we actually have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you think about when something big happens in the United States, the world follows. Let me give you an example. Number one, gay marriage. You know, I saw a poll come out, not a poll, but a stat came out. After, it's been what, it's probably been 3 or 4 years now since gay marriage has been legal in the United States. I saw a stat that said 50 other countries have followed suit when only like 12 others before us, including our neighbor Canada, which is 2005, legalized this gay marriage. And CNN even came out with a thing. You know, I don't watch CNN very often, but I do from time to time, and they have to be on saying, yeah, the United States is influenced, and they said, of course, that's good. I mean, you look at the United States now, and 64% support it, and 33% don't. And we look at this flash shockwave that sends out across the world. And now we're starting, and imagine with that shockwave, if we had a nationalist movement, anti-immigration movement that was very powerful, and something happened in the United States, imagine what that could do in Europe. Mm-hmm. And you know, what does it say? I think it doesn't say very much, because they aren't going to influence us.
Right.
You look at
that's right.
The only hope for them is the United States.
Mm.
So we have to do our part in order to see results across Europe.
That's why identitarians and the alternative right in America are so important, because the more power that we gain, that they gain, European nationalists will follow. The United States, like you said, does lead. It influences Europe. Europe doesn't necessarily influence America anymore, which is sad, but it doesn't. And America needs to, nationalists here need to start getting more power, so we can end or contain feminism, contain the southern border, contain things like that.
Yeah, and I agree. I would like to see a nationalist movement throughout Europe. But overall, I think that the United States has to take the first step.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Do you think that parties in nationalist parties in France, like Marine Le Pen's party, or Alternative for Deutschland, do you think these parties are going to be as influential as they make themselves out to be? Because in the end, it's kind of like in the U.S. when a president comes and goes, a lot of people stay behind. His ideas and influence stay behind for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that will, like a nationalist party in Germany, is going to struggle because the global banks, we all know who runs those,
Mm-hmm.
have a tight grip on Germany's economy, and it's a good one. Don't get me wrong, but they have a tight grip on their government, on censorship. So, part of me says, well, these nationalist parties are healthy, especially to normies in the U.S. and Europe.
Mm-hmm.
It might not mean as much as they want to mean.
I agree, and the hard part is, how do we get these nationalist movement? See, nationalist movement, does it come down to one race? And really, it does come down to one race when you're talking about nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
And so, number one, you're narrowing your audience, and you get people like, for instance, the United States, African Americans, Latinos, which, don't get me wrong, some of them are not divided. They're in queue with white America. But you're going to see more opposition against that, and people seem to listen to minorities. They seem to listen to 3% other than the 97%.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like I was saying earlier, their voice is louder than the other 97. And when you get into all that, it's just a very confusing deal.
Mm-hmm. And I remember the Polish nationalists a couple months back did a rally, 60,000 Poles did a rally in Poland, and a sign that they held up, they had a sign with a swastika on it and a cross through it, a void through it, so they were anti-Nazi, and on the other side of the sign they had a hammer and sickle, Soviet, effectively Russian hammer and sickle, and a void through it. So they're anti-Soviet and they're anti-Nazi, which is by all means healthy. And on the sign it said, "We want a white Europe." And I think that's very powerful to parties across Europe. And granted, nationalist parties in Sweden, it's going to take some time. Nationalist parties in France, it's going to take some time. But it's a start.
And you know, I agree. Everybody has to start somewhere. And you know, you start off as a small little snowball, and then you start just to grow, and you keep gaining momentum as you run down the hill. But the hard part is getting it formed.
Right.
And I just don't think we have it formed
I don't either.
yet.
I don't either, yeah.
We just don't have the traction there.
In the United States, we have a small movement, but it's dysfunctional. It's tons of infighting.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a set leader, which is I don't think there should be a set leader, but we're just a small movement right now, and we need to expand.
I agree, but I think you look at any great party, which I will call this movement a party, because the alt-right kind of is their separate entity.
Mm-hmm. It's the alternative to the current right.
Yeah.
So
Every successful party or movement has had a leader. You take a look at the movement in the 50s and 60s, the Black African American movement. They had a leader.
they did.
MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. No one, forgets about him. The Democratic Party, you had crazy W. Wasserman Schultz leading that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, they're powerful because they have a leader. Yeah, they have elections within their own parties, but you have to have a leader. Whether we want one or not,
I
or
think
agree, we have to have one.
I think for now it's okay if the alternative right doesn't, because with the amount of infighting that takes place, a lot of people don't agree with each other. So if we have a leader and he says one thing and half of the people disagree, they might no longer call themselves that or associate themselves with that movement. Whereas if we have kind of loosely defined umbrella groups, people are kind of going to find their niche. And eventually, you're right, we do need to unite. We absolutely do need to unite.
And really, the alt-right, you could say our spokesperson is Richard Spencer. Really.
Mm-hmm.
He's the unofficial spokesperson.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I do think that the alt-right needs to do, yeah, we may lose some followers, But we need to come out with a platform and really saying we are firm in what we believe and what we think is right. You're either with us or you're not. I think people may not come to the alt-right because they only may see them as a white nationalist movement. No one really knows exactly what the alt-right's about. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not alt-right. But I do lean that way. And really, I do think, Dean, that whenever we take a look at the alt-right, we have to understand everything that's involved with it. And when people don't know, if somebody doesn't know something about it, whenever they look on Google, the alt-right, white nationalist movement, what are they going to think? We don't have a platform.
And it even goes farther than that. It's called names a lot where I'm not even going to say some of the names it's called because I don't want to even bring those names up. I mean, they're blasphemous.
Mm-hmm.
The alt-right has to work on attracting normies. Normal people, normal conservatives who... I was a normal conservative once. I was absolutely run-of-the-mill conservative. I was a Marco Rubio
I remember
conservative.
That. I remember that.
And I quickly changed. And I'll admit, Trump changed that. And which reminds me of a Joy Reid. That name should sound familiar. One of her tweets from back in the day, saying that Trump kind of revived old white nationalist ideas and 1950s ideas, and she was correct. She was correct. And the alternative right said, okay, that's fine, so be it. But in certain areas, the alt-right needs to get more normally friendly, and get more people on board. And like you said, you lean that way, and that's all that matters, is to get people aware of these ideas. That's really all that matters. Yeah,
and you say Donald Trump revived that white nationalist movement, and I
don't. She didn't say that.
Trump.
She said that Trump kind of revived 1950s feelings, 1950s nostalgia.
Yeah. Well, I have the tweet right here.
Read it.
Church. ... Family. ... You guys will get the memo. Police, military, the national anthem. Trump trying to call on all the tropes of the 1950s era nationalism. The goal of this speech appears to be the force of normalization of Trump on the terms of the bygone era. It makes me laugh. His supporters are nostalgic for. And this tweet...
She's right to him.
She is. I will agree with her.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why she thinks the church is bad, the family is bad. Police, okay, yeah, they've had their mess-ups in some instances. But they do more good than harm.
Yeah.
It's just like the minorities getting their voice spoken for. It's just like the bad stuff always being shown.
Right. Military,
how can you be against a massive military? The national anthem, how in the world are you... I kid you not, we got more people in Mexico, that have more pride in the United States than Joy Reid does.
This tweet shows the racial divide politically in the United States.
It does.
Because, like the national anthem kneeling thing, that was an African movement, a black movement.
Well, what do you say...
They didn't feel connected.
Well, okay.
Which to an extent, I don't necessarily blame them for that.
Well, really, the national anthem thing really united them, and that came with the police thing and everything, and so that made a connection for her. But what do you say to the black conservatives who want to be alt-right, but don't maybe feel accepted in the alt-right? Or is alt-right welcoming, even though they are for ethno-states? Are they accepting to black people?
And I would say they're not. And I would also say a Jewish person who writes articles, alt-right articles with alt-right ideas, they are absolutely fine to do that. In my opinion, a black person, even a black liberal, it's okay if they write about alt-right topics, alt-right ideas. I mean, in the end, is the alt-right going to include the movement? No, it's not. And it to an extent, has the right to not. I mean, we should be able to choose. But I see what you're saying with attracting normies. This goes along with attracting white Bernie voters. We
Mm-hmm.
have to get our numbers up. Whether that's black people with ideas that kind of, like we saw with this Kanye West thing. If it's black people kind of tilting the ladder to the right a little, that's awesome. If it's Jews writing, so and so, writing about their ethno state and how it might relate to the alt-right, that's fine. That's healthy as well.
I just can't see, though, how we can't include black people who want to join our movement and push for conservative ideas.
Black people don't want to join the alt-right, though.
Yeah, but
they can be conservative. I'm all for that. That's good. But they can't. They don't want to be alt-right. They view us as racist.
But I think this is one of the reasons I only lean alt-right. You got to think. You just were talking about, and I did agree with that we have we're kind of have a narrow audience, but our audience is only going to be narrower. Mm-hmm. It's a whole heck of a lot easier to deal with only 2 races compared to 6 others that are in the United States. Latino. I have no problems with these races. Mm-hmm. They're a lot of good people. Latino, Indians, Asians, yellow people, and really you could potentially say Asians and yellow people are basically the same thing. Mm-hmm. You talk about Filipinos, they're a little bit different, So all these different races, I just think we need to broaden our base. I know, realistically, if you look on,
I think
broaden our. It is a white nationalist movement. It's a white, really. If we don't allow any other race. What are we?
But we should never call ourselves that, ever.
And I told you this
before.
No
one does. No one does call it. No one's
going
to call themselves that.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like us. Like I told you the analogy, the fat boy at the swimming pool who's fat and he's wearing the T-shirt. You aren't hiding nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We aren't hiding nothing by calling ourselves something different.
Mm-hmm. I would rather the fat kid at the swimming pool take his shirt off. I mean,
so call ourselves white nationalists.
Own it.
Yeah, why aren't we owning it?
But he shouldn't go around saying, "Hey, I'm fat. Hey, guess what? I'm fat." Let's just put our policies out there, put our ideas out there.
So in terms of platform,
sure, and don't a set platform or putting our ideas out on Twitter, on our websites, podcasts like this one. We do need to broaden our horizon, but we shouldn't broaden our horizon to a certain group of people. We broaden our horizon totally. We try to include more people. Try to be a little more lenient, and that doesn't mean racially, because the alt-right is always going to be a white movement. Not because the alt-right doesn't want other people to join, which to an extent they don't, but because other people don't want to join, and they don't have to.
And I call myself a traditionalist, and I'm not alt-right. I just lean that way, and I do have I hold some different views.
That's where a lot of people are.
And I will be releasing, and we'll talk next podcast when I fully come out, and it'll be on our website, about the platform. I'm building a platform so that traditionalists. This isn't your modern traditionalism, okay? I made a platform that I believe in, and you may or may not believe this, as a listener, but I'm kind of a platform, it's based on economy, women, U.S., and the other outside affairs, and they're all branched off, and we have also gay marriage in there, and racial problems in there too that I will discuss.
I recently published an article on our website about titled "The End of Conservatism," and conservatism is going to drain into the abyss because it's not. By the way, I didn't say this earlier. The Republican Party is a white party. They're not going to say that, but they are a white party. 90%, more than 90% are its voting base. It is a white party whether one likes it or not. My point is, we can't be run-of-the-mill conservatives. We can't be run-of-the-mill Republicans because that's quickly going away. And conservatives aren't matching the passion and the fire of liberals, quite honestly.
Yeah, and I'm going to read something from the Washington Post, and it may be encouraging even though the Washington Post is mainly liberal, left-leaning, and their headline is, mostly black neighborhoods voted more Republican in 2016 than 2012. So it comes this Trump's rhetoric about maybe a revival, and his out-of-this-world ideas, not saying that they are bad by any means, because I think they are good.
Anything that shifts the bar right is healthy. Anything.
I would agree. So, to an extent, is the left right, or this rhetoric coming from the left, that the right doesn't really relate to the African American community, actually true? I mean, really, is it true? When Washington Post, which is a very verified news source, it's not the Huffington Post, which is left. It's Washington Post.
The Republican Party is. This is why the Republican Party has to be staunch anti-immigrationists, staunch closed border people, because the more non-whites that come in, granted there are black neighborhoods like that vote right, the more non-whites that come in, the more votes Hillary Clinton's going to get, the more votes Bernie's going to get, the more votes Jill Stein's going to get. Anyway, exit question. When should we see a third political party rise in America? One that is truly nationalistic and identitarian? Are we looking at 5 years, 10 years, 25 years? When is it?
Really, you could say.
Or is it next year? Because Trump did shift that bar right, at least during his campaign. He moved the window.
He did, and I think that we've already had a true, I shouldn't say true all-righter, but really, theoretically, you could, I'm going to call him all-right, who has ran for president in the primary. You go back to 2008 with Ron Paul. Really? I mean, he isn't all the way there, but we'll just say he's there.
He was staunch anti-war, which is...
Anti-foreign aid, for one.
Anti-foreign aid.
He did come out and say he was anti-foreign aid to Israel, which he has said.
Are we looking at 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
It could be sooner than we think. It could be within 2 election cycles of presidency, depending on... And really, our only hope is really Donald Trump pushing the bar farther right. But Mike Pence is more of a mainstream Christian conservative who appeals to, really, the white voters of the United States.
And that's okay. And Trump, I think, we will see whether he shifts it further right. Hopefully he does, but we will see. Issue 3. Emmanuel Macron and his visit to America. Yesterday, French President Emmanuel Macron and his former teacher, now wife, visited America. Hailing the, quote, very important visit, Macron then rolled into the West Wing from Lafayette Square, named after the storied French general who fought in America's war for independence. Beneath dozens of fluttering tricolor flags and before the full U.S. military color guard. The aesthetics of Macron's visit were very good. The two talked about Syria, Iran, and Macron visited George Washington University and took part in a town hall and talked about climate change. Receiving French President Emmanuel Macron for a state visit in the White House, Trump repeated his criticism of the agreement to freeze Iran's nuclear program, saying it doesn't address Tehran's missile program or its attempts to foment unrest in the region. Charles, is Macron playing fiddle to globalist politicians, or is he different?
Oh, man. Oh, man. Really? In the end, he's always looking... Politicians are always looking to get an edge. But you gotta think. Donald Trump isn't one to get played. And he has repeatedly called Macron a great friend.
Right.
Which makes me think, really, is this political for... Well, it is in a sense political for Macron in France. But I don't think, in theory, with Donald Trump calling him a good friend, and Donald Trump came out and it has said that he disagrees on the Iran deal and on the climate change. So they have their differences. You know, you'd think it'd be more political if they were agreeing on everything to get an upper edge on the United States if Macron was doing that. But Macron stood his ground, said, France, these are France's values, what we're going to hold on to, what we support. And Donald Trump came out and said, I disagree. So when it came to the interests, by the end of the day, they both said they had a lot of respect for each other. So to answer your question, no, I don't think he's playing like a fiddle. Now, you could convince me otherwise with other details, but right now I hold that stance.
A couple months ago, President Macron tweeted and maybe even said in real life that African mothers should stop having 8 children. That is something most presidents would not ever dream of saying, and it's obviously true. I mean,
who doesn't think that way?
Yeah,
no one's just going to say it.
Right. He said what he said what everyone's thinking.
Yeah, right.
And that's what makes me say, is he different? Because he former banker, so I mean he's aware of how that operates. He's aware of who operates it. He said he rejects the idea of nationalism, yet he does the Bastille Day parade, his military parade in France, every year. Which is absolutely beautiful.
That's the catch.
Absolutely beautiful parade. If he was anti-nationalist, he wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have kept that going, which he absolutely should. France is important.
Yeah, and you know, on that part, you know, that could be just a context thing, but I don't know where he was or the time period that he said that, but it's got to make you think. He's supporting all these things, and this one little snippet of what he said just contradicts everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's so much weight on the left side, you know, outweighing this balance here, and the right side just can't outweigh the left. You know what I mean?
He'll say something awesome, and then he'll turn around and say something like he rejects nationalism. I mean, that's just...
It baffles me,
That's
really.
appalling. That's appalling, yeah.
And that's him playing a fiddle to his reporters' ears.
Right.
Or, who knows, it could just be him just saying, you know, get off my back. He's having a bad day. I don't know what his reasoning behind that was. I like to find out more.
He recently said that he said that millions of migrants would flood into Europe in the next, I forget how many years he said. So he's aware of the future. He's aware of the future.
Yeah.
Will he take a pro-immigration? I mean, with mass immigration, people flood right into Paris. I mean, you can Google image migrants in Paris. They defecate on the streets. It's appalling. It will. A nationalist would say, all right, this is enough. We're going to change our ways, and he would get rid of it.
And it comes down to this. You know, I've told you this before, but you may not have heard this. You talk about traditionalism. I'm a traditionalist. And traditionalism is a nationalist view.
Right. It absolutely is.
I don't know what in the world happens, how it happens when people say, traditionalism, you have a set rules, you follow. You know, they will always work. That's why you go back to traditional values that work. It always works. And then you go over to Europe, and then they're just saying, yeah, come on in, change our culture that's non-traditional. Mm-hmm. It makes me wonder, what are these countries, what are the leaders of these countries think that they're going to gain by allowing them in?
I have no clue. Yeah.
And we don't have any answers.
Yeah.
What are they expecting to gain? And really, I don't understand how they could run and win in the first place if they were truly traditional.
Right. It is appalling. We're lucky that countries like Hungary and Poland Russia. We're lucky that countries like this, Czech Republic,
Mm-hmm.
Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania,
Mhm.
Finland. There are tons of countries in Europe that have proven that they don't need immigration.
Israel.
They've proven that they don't need it. But Europe has, I mean, Germany neighbors Poland. Poland is succeeding, flourishing, and they're neighbors with Germany, and Germany must look at them and say, how racist, but how successful. I mean, Poland's flourishing, and Germany's not.
Yeah, and I think it was
Germany can't even celebrate Christmas without a truck getting driven into 50 people.
Yeah, and that's just another appalling thing. How long is it going to take for Angela Merkel, blind-eyed, Helen Keller, deaf, president, to wake up and finally see...
No children.
Yeah, it's like, how can they elect... it's kind of like me with Barack Obama. How in the world can we elect him? Then you get proven wrong how many stupid people there are. How many stupid people are actually in Germany? As of 4 years ago, they were one of the most strongest economies, which to an extent they kind of still are, but they better be careful, because the Grim Reaper's knocking on their doorstep.
Yeah. It's disappointing because Germany had flourished up to 1945. Flourished. And there's no reason to change that. It's like voluntarily destroying your culture. I mean, you can't even talk about the World War in really either of them. You can't talk about either of them in Germany without facing, legal charges. You can't say anything. It's incredible.
Well, I may be beating a dead horse here, or you and I may be beating a dead horse, but really, it comes down to women being emboldened and being different, so other people feel emboldened to be different. If someone's emboldened to be different, and you want to make a change, the time's now. Gain more movement, like what the alt-right, the traditionalism movement needs to do in the United States. We need to bring out multiple different movements, little sections, and move together in one direction, just like these people are.
Right. And it's like these nationalist movements in Germany, I'm so skeptical of them. They're not going to work, which is sad. It is, but I think that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, I feel so bad for the European citizens, really the oldest generation, which is the greatest generation in Europe, or in the United States, which is in Europe, in that time period, the way they are seeing the digression of their homeland. Right. The people who have seen World War II, which there are still some World War II veterans out there in 1950s, people who grew up in that time period, who lived it. I just feel bad for them. Do they feel like, I'm at the point in my life where I just don't care anymore because I'm about to leave this world, and enter eternity? And that's the question. Are they our last hope?
Yeah. To go back, you can go back to the Roman Empire of the Romans fighting with the people from Magna Germania on the Catalonian fields, and they fought together and they conquered outside forces. They beat forces that were trying to invade Europe, and Europe is home, and it's deteriorating quickly.
Those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make mad. We must be mad, literally mad, as a nation, to be permitting the annual inflow of some 50,000 dependents, who are, for the most part, the material of the future growth of the immigrant-descended population. It is like watching a nation busily engaged in heaping up its own funeral pyre.
Issue 4, Korean Concord. On April 27th, the Supreme Leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, stepped across the demilitarized zone and shook hands with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. 2 days prior, the two had a historical summit in which resulted in a joint statement that expressed the want to have a, quote, complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Kim was quoted as saying, quote, "Although I am inherently resistant toward America, people will see that I am not the kind of person who fires nukes at South Korea, the Pacific, or America." Of course, the world will be skeptical of Kim's sudden change of heart. Charles, how much credit should we give President Trump for the Korean de-escalation?
I really think we should give him 90% credit. He's the one who's been calling the shots. The media can say what they want. They were all against him. When the United States was running military drills with South Korea, the liberal left media is just on him, dogging him. And now that we see this, they're like, where are they at? It's like crickets, outside at night, playing racquetball. Nothing's going on. Okay? And we give him not enough credit for what he's done.
Right.
And really, you see that they're actually talking. Mike Pompeo, he did a fantastic job over there, getting that deal done. And I really give him guts. Speak to someone like Kim Jong-un, who allows his country to run these evil internment camps. I mean, just speaking to someone like that and having the guts, I'm not saying I don't have it, but I would be, maybe a little intimidated to an extent because I know what he does.
Kim Jong-un has been, I think, 90% of the credit should go to Trump, maybe more. I think the rest of the credit should go to Kim Jong-un himself, because this was a big step, a huge step. His dad would never have done this. His grandfather would never have done this. And in a way, he's kind of going against his dad and grandfather.
Well,
but
back in the day,
he's okay with that because I think he does want peace, or at least that's what he's continuing to say. It's a big step. He does deserve some credit.
You gotta think too. I always wonder about his military generals. What do they tell him when Kim Jong-un asks him, how does the North Korean military compare to? Because don't think North Korea doesn't know what the United States has when they were bombing, running military drills right, on their border and their back door. Do they lie to him, or do they tell him the truth? Out of fear, they tell him a lie. Then he ends up, I think he's more scared for his life in those You got to think, too, Dean, when his father and grandfather were head of North Korea, their economy was so much stronger, and we are crippling them right now.
They have a lot of... North Korea is united. They don't have the political divide that the United States has. I think China has been very helpful. President Xi.
Mm-hmm.
I think Russia to an extent, not a very big extent.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Vladimir Putin to an extent. South Korea has been very welcoming. Japan has been helpful. I mean, everyone in the region's kind of rallied around Kim Jong-un. I think Kim Jong-un will appreciate that, actually.
And yeah, I agree. I don't always agree, but I agree with that because it's not wrong. Kim Jong-un knows he's not getting any support, which, very well, the United States just came out, probably a month ago, where our satellites caught Chinese ships exporting goods into North Korea. And it really baffled me, because North Korea is connected to China. So it's like, why would they be shipping and going against the UN sanctions? And I think Kim Jong-un maybe under, quote-unquote, under the table talks with President Xi saying, look, you got to tone down and just give it up. Because we can't be, your big brother forever.
Right.
You got to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that Kim Jong-un is a little boy or acts like a little boy, because he's definitely not. He's very intelligent, but there's an evil intelligence there.
Right. And the worst thing the United States can do is, take his nukes, take South Korea's nukes, and then bomb North Korea. I mean, what does that say to Iran? What does that say to anyone with nukes that we're against? What does that say to them? Because we'd be taking their nukes and then bombing them. I don't think the United States would do that. It's always a possibility, but I don't think it would.
And, well, I don't think we ever would. I mean, because there'd be really no justification for it, like it is in the Middle East or in Syria, for example, where we bombed. We aren't in war over there, and I think if we did, let's just say, for instance, we did bomb North Korea, Iran ain't giving up their nuclear program. Because they know what's going to happen to them, potentially, more than likely.
I don't think Iran should ever give up their nuclear program, but that's an issue for another day.
Yeah, it's most definitely, because I know you and I do disagree on that, which can be now for another podcast, which would make a great conversation.
Yeah. I think Kim Jong-un at least sees the connection between South Korea and North Korea. It should be a united Korea.
I agree.
And he would like to be the leader of that united Korea, don't get me wrong. But I think this is a huge, huge step.
Well, would it happen? But how would that work, though? I know they came together in the Olympics, okay? President Moon, I mean, people can say what they want about him, but I really never seen anything to dislike about him.
Right.
He seemed to be very responsive and communicated very well with the United States. It's like, but why wouldn't he, with the greatest world power as of right now? But do you think Kim Jong-un is all talk and no action? Because, Donald Trump has called him Rocket Man, and he said the United States, he's declared war against North Korea, and he'll pay dearly. Do you really think Kim Jong-un thinks he is strong enough? I mean, really, do you think he is strong enough to take on the United States? Do you? I mean,
no. He may think he's strong enough to take on the United States, but he knows if you ever fight against the United States, you also fight against the United Kingdom. You are going to fight against South Korea. You're going to fight against Japan. You're going to fight against more than just the United States.
But in theory,
he knows that. He knows that.
In theory, if that did happen, I don't think that our allies would help, because it's North Korea.
That's possible.
But Kim Jong-un doesn't want to take that chance.
Yeah. If you're the United Kingdom, why in the world would you spend money on bombing North Korea?
Yeah, when you don't have any quote unquote beef.
Yeah, or France.
Yeah, France.
Or South Korea. I mean, South Korea has beef, but France and the UK don't.
Yeah, I mean, but Kim Jong-un can't be that ignorant to see right across from his border. What was it, 30 to 50 miles? Seoul is from the border. It's like, can he not see those lights and how that economy is compared to his cities where they have to have special electricity, rationed for when high-ranking individuals come to stay? Yeah. It's like, come on, give me a break, man. He has to know. But is he that delusional? I think he's mentally ill to an extent.
He could be. Yeah.
Or maybe just all front. That he's told himself this lie over and over again. He believes it.
And think about the propaganda that he has put into North Korean citizens.
He's got to start believing.
To hatred of South Korea. He's propagandized the country to hate South Korea. I don't see a united Korea ever working. A South Korean's going to walk past a North Korean, and they're going to get into a fight. Mm-hmm. I don't think the South Korean will ever start. The North Korean will.
But the whole thing is, for me, China will never let a united Korea happen. But what in the world do they have to gain babysitting North Korea?
Yeah.
What do they have to gain? And really, when it comes down to it, they are just as bad. I shouldn't say just as bad, but they are nearly as bad as North Korea when it comes to a humanitarian standpoint. And it's like, I want us to help these people. I would love to bomb, North Korea to an extent if we knew that North Korea is the only people we're going to handle. Say you want to get in this 10-year war. No, it wouldn't be a 10-year war. Okay, it'd be a fast sweep if we brought out military might. Okay. Yeah. And so, just for those people, man, you hear these escapees come out, these stories, and it's like you want to help these people, but then again,
You don't want to get into a war.
There's a whole can of worms that opens up. It's kind of what we've said with Middle East. We've tried to help people, but look what we've done.
Yeah. Exit question. Which Asiatic country would you want to raise a foreign legion from? Your options are North Korea, South Korea, Japan, Philippines, Taiwan, China, Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Malaysia.
Out of all those, I'd take a look at...
And I'm asking this as if we were going into a war. Which foreign legion would you want to take a division of 10,000, make it ours, and be able to command them? Which country would you want that to come from?
So whenever I think about this question, I want to think very strategically. Okay? How does the land lie? How many people? How economically developed they are? Those first three things are really the big things. You could even say health, really. And I really think it's unfair to all the other smaller countries, but you've got to say China. I mean, how can you not? They have a lot of hills and valleys, mountains, open flatlands. Kind of like, they aren't as flat and open as the Great Plains of the United States, but they kind of are like the Rockies to an extent. They have these terraces and everything. It's a real beautiful place, but you want to talk about land and terrain, how well defensively you could be getting on higher ground. They're economically developed, second biggest economy in the world, catching the United States, but the United States is starting to pull away as it has been starting this year. We've been pulling away. Forbes came out, so I'd have to go with China.
You have to go with China. So you would choose Chinese soldiers to fight with. Nothing wrong with that. Chinese soldiers to fight with.
Yeah, if you're talking about the Asian, peninsula,
they're tough. Don't get me wrong. I would say my answer is North Korea. I would take North Korean soldiers. Their fight they go balls to the wall, as the Chinese do. That's
a pretty good point. They are very passionate. It's what it seems on the outside, and that's a great point that you bring out, Dean, and it kind of makes me want to switch my choice, because it kind of just went over my head there, but Chinese people, they're pretty patriotic people too. But I wonder, people say North Koreans, they're just doing that out of fear. And I did watch this video where they had this doctor come in, and they were supposed to heal like 50 North Koreans. It was on the National Geographic channel. It was amazing. If you haven't watched it, see it. It's National Geographic. This doctor was supposed to come in. He was a professional eye surgeon, or whatever. He was doing humanitarian aid stuff, and Kim Jong-un had supposedly sent him in. And they apparently fixed their eyes, but they didn't. And they were giving their leader, thank you, Kim Jong-un, whatever their language is. And I wonder if they were being so passionate in thanking him, like their military is, about defending North Korea. Because even these defectors are like, yeah, North Korea is terrible.
Right. Yeah. And I think that North Korea Japan would also be a good answer, but that's it.
Those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make. I can already hear the chorus of execration. How dare I say such a horrible thing?
Issue 5, Crypto Update. Charles, what is the latest on crypto coins?
Right now, we've really had a pretty good week, but we're seeing some potential in Ethereum right now. We saw the markets take a little bit of dip 2 days ago. Really, in the past 24 hours, we've seen a slight change, when it comes to 0.5% to 2%. But if you want to invest in a cryptocurrency right now, I'd definitely invest in Ethereum, standing at roughly $690. Experts have said, even in Bitcoin talk, that Ethereum is going to reach 3,500 by the end of the year. Now, what's going to make that boom? I can't tell you that. But, experts have been wrong before. Just like they said, Bitcoin, experts, even on CNN Money, saying, yes, Bitcoin is going to crash. And it jumped to 20,000. All the way from 4, it's going to keep crashing. It's boomed, it keeps making a big boom and spike. And overall, we're starting to see slow and steady gains with little dips. But mainly, they're going to go up. If you're patient with your money and you wait a year, you're going to see good ROIs, good return on your investments. Bitcoin had a good week too. It's up to 9,400, up from last week where it was sitting about 8,600. So it's getting $1,000 in 1 week. So that's very pleasing to see. It's coming back. It's not going to go away, people. So if you're going to invest, Bitcoin's not bad to invest in. I'm not saying that, but if I'm going to invest money right now, I'm going to be investing in Ethereum.
Exit question. What crypto coin do you recommend buying?
I would have to say Ethereum. And there are a lot of good options out there. Don't get me wrong. Litecoin, it is struggling. But I do think it's going to make a moderate rise. If you're looking just for a solid coin that you're going to make a little bit of money on, that you can guarantee yourself, I think it says staying at roughly $150 right now. A little over. I think, it's my opinion, that it's going to reach 200 by January 1 of 2019. So, really, you can't go wrong. But I'm still going to stay on the Ethereum train. I've been on the Ethereum train. Even I bought in at it when it was at $200. And then it went up to over $1,000. Okay? So, I'm a believer in it. Yeah, the market's readjusted. Had to adjust. Just like the stock market has. But I believe, it's my opinion, that Ethereum is good for a long haul. Because you have many Ethereum-based coins.
Alright.